Hey y'all, welcome and welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Morgan, and here we do a little bit of all things creepy. But today specifically, we are doing nothing but reading your guys' scary stories that you sent in to me. And I did like a little skim through of these, and they're terrifying. So maybe turn on a light, save this one for the daytime, do whatever you gotta do. But some of these looked a little rough. Before we get into it though, please check out the description below to find out where to send me your stories if you have any you'd like for me to read. I'll also put them in a bubble right here, and down there you'll also find more social media links and all other kinds of fun stuff. So with all that being said, let's read some of these stories. Before we start these stories, I just want to say that I've been sensitive to this kind of stuff for as long as I've had consciousness. So, since I was around 4 years old. It started when I went to Pennsylvania when something followed me home, but that's another story for another day. And yes, it is still with me. As I type this, I can feel myself about to throw up from thinking about it. We both don't mind each other, but it still doesn't like me talking about it. By the way, this one is going to be long, so buckle in and enjoy the ride. Story number 1, Orbs at the Door. This happened not to me, but my mom sometime during 2022 when we had 3 relatives pass away. My mom was awake at around 3 in the morning when she was getting ready for work and the Ring doorbell rung. Someone was at the front door, but it wasn't someone. It was 4 orbs floating on top of each other like a line. My mom told me she was scared. But after a few seconds of floating around the front door, they went in through my older sister's window where she still lived with us. My mom tells me she thinks it's dirt, so she thinks the house isn't haunted. But the timeline from when the 3 of them passed away was too coincidental to be dirt. There's just one last question. Who was the 4th orb? We think it may be a different relative who passed away decades before, but we don't know. I mean, yeah, that timeline is something, yeah. Story number 2, the shadow figures in my house. So like I said before, ever since I've had consciousness, I've seen things in my house. Well, seen and heard. In the bathroom next to my room, there's a tall shadow man with a hat that looks into the mirror. There's another one in my twin sister's room that's a spider of some kind of blob. In my parents' room is a woman that sits in their bed. In my dad's living room, something is crouching near the window doors. The only safe rooms are the family room, kitchen, and my room. I 100% believe it is my deities protecting me. They don't do anything, and I don't know why they're there, so there's that. Story number 3. Hand. I don't know how to word it. It's literally just the firework emoji, but it's not a firework that it's about, I don't think. I had a loft bed for a few years of my life, so this was in 2022. That was the summer before we got rid of it. However, before we did, I slept in that bed with my twin. But one night I couldn't fall asleep because I felt like if I did, a long white hand would reach out and drop a on my face. I didn't sleep that night. I still don't know what made me feel that way, but I cleansed my closet at night now. Ugh. That's like a strange thing to just like pinpoint worry about. Like that has to have some sort of meaning, unless you watched a really specific movie before. Story number 4, last night. Last night, the thing that followed me home from Pennsylvania was in my closet. I know it was because it was moving in there and I couldn't fall asleep because of it. I was watching some YouTube videos until it growled. It growled at me. Before then, the thing that followed me home hadn't given me any trouble at all, no talking or anything. So I got up from my bed and walked over to one of my deity's altars and lit an incense. After I lit the incense, a few moments after, I fell asleep with no more growling. If you want to know about how this thing followed me home, then I'll send another email later. Please do. That is creepy. I'm glad I'm not the only one that, like, beelines to deities' altars if I, like, feel the least bit unsafe. I'm always just like, help! Unless I feel like I caused it. And then I'm like, it's fine. Alright, next story. When I was little, my mom would brush off everything I did as an imaginary friend. I'd tell her that the Hat Man needed money to go home to his family, and I'd play with shadows in the corners. This was never thought of much in the house until I'd walk around holding their hand, telling my mom that I needed to help them find something. After that, my mom got the house blessed. She thought it would end there, but it didn't. I'd go to sleep and wake up in the middle of the night crying, and she'd constantly ask me what was wrong, and I'd go into detail about other lives who passed. When I was 5, we moved, and it stopped for a while, but it came back, and it lurked outside of our windows. It was at the foot of our beds, and both my mom and I would wake up with bruises and scratches all over our bodies. This happened randomly for years until we moved again. The first year in our home, I felt sad. I thought it was because I left my friends behind, but it wasn't ever that I felt sad. It was as if we ruined someone's area. The second year into living in my current home, they came back. They'd be at the front of my bed watching me. In the dark, they'd be there. I've saged, but it's still there, and it doesn't necessarily feel negative, but it's not positive either. This is something else that had happened in my area. My friends and I were being teenagers, and we walk around the woods. We like to pick things up from there, but I never do without asking the area first because I try to always be respectful. Well, one day we came across what I could only explain as a ritual site. The trees were marked in what looked like red wax, and there was wax on the ground, and there was a circle and something in the middle. My friend walked into it unknowingly, and I realized something was there. I got my friend out of that area, and we walked back to my house because I needed to sage her. That area felt horrible. But ever since then, something tells me to go back. Whenever I'm outside, I feel like I need to look in the area in the woods to keep something away. I'd also like to note that I hear babies crying in the woods there, and my mom was heard laughing when I'm not home. But it's my laugh. When I heard the babies crying, I thought it was from being sleep deprived after having a project of taking care of a robotic baby for class, so I didn't think much of it. But now whenever I'm near that area, I hear the baby crying. And if it's not a baby crying, I hear faint calls for help or to be saved. But I live by the rule of if you hear something from the woods, no you did not. So I've tried my best to ignore it, but it haunts my dreams. In my sleep, I see that area. It calls me to go there, and I wake up in fear constantly. For a little context, I live in a neighborhood surrounded by woods, and my house was newly built on this land too. I also live in Maryland now, but I originally was in Pennsylvania, in a very known city area where the shadow figures first started. I think this is a good case of like things will follow you, especially the things in the woods, and they don't just stay outside, they can come into your house. Like it's a whole thing, and I'm not just talking about one specific creature. I feel like a lot of people think that when I'm talking about the things in the woods, that is a blanket statement for a lot of things, and some of them come right into your house. So here's the thing. Sage tends to make things worse. From my experience, from the experience of a lot of people that I've talked to about it, I would try to not use sage. Dragon's blood incense is really good. If you still want to use an herb bundle, you could do like a rosemary lavender one. You can usually buy those from metaphysical stores. They work a lot better. You can also cleanse with crystals like selenite sticks or use witch's bells. I would also recommend putting some iron either outside on your property or right inside of your door. I've also heard of people putting like iron necklaces on or something on their body just to keep them safe. You said you already live by the if you heard something no you didn't rule, so I'm not gonna bark that at you, but that is absolutely horrific. Alright, next story. I just want to start by saying that I love your content. I watch your videos almost every day and they bring me so much joy. I'm reaching out with this one for advice. My house is very old, so naturally I knew there would be something. For context, my house has 2 showers, one in the basement and one in the upstairs. I always shower in the upstairs, but one day my sister was getting ready, so I had to go downstairs. The downstairs bathroom always creeped me out, considering it's connected to what used to be the cellar. Plus, I always had a feeling of being watched, and my dogs are always fearful of that room. Back in the day, I had to shower down there. When I get out of the shower, I hear a man's voice so clearly say, "Hey." I don't live with any men. I immediately had this horrible feeling and ran to my room and actually started to cry. Ever since then, I haven't heard him. My mother has always told me she heard him. Talking more recently, I really don't know what to do about this because it has so much bad energy. What do you think this thing could be? So, it is an older house. Just with the hay, it's hard to diagnose it. If there's anything else that happened in the house, let me know. But it could literally be anything from a poltergeist, if other bad stuff's happening down there, just to a former owner that's trying to make himself known, that doesn't like dogs. It could literally be anything. It could be something from the woods outside. It doesn't have to be. It could literally be so much. I would recommend cleansing regardless. Cleansing your space of negative energy just to make sure everything's okay. But, yeah, if anything else has been happening, let me know. To me, it's giving former owner. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe he loved the basement or he loved the cellar. He was down there a lot. Maybe, he did work down there. I have no idea. But, do a cleansing. Or reach out, have a mutual understanding, do something. Alright, next story. I'm a new follower, but I love your videos. I found your page by looking up scary stories on TikTok, and I've just been watching your videos for hours. But to get into this story, this happened a couple of years ago at my old house in North Carolina. It happened in Mount Holly, which is close to Charlotte. I was really young, probably 4 or 5, and me and my family were living in a rental house in this neighborhood across the road from a daycare that I went to. So basically, one night I was sleeping, and I just randomly wake up, and I turn around to face my door, and I see a little boy. He was blue and kind of transparent. My mom said it was probably my imagination, but I remember it clearly. There was a little lamp of mine that would light up, and it would have little superheroes flying around the room going off, and I got so scared. I hid under my covers, and I fell back asleep. I didn't tell anyone about this until I was older, and we had already moved out of that house. When I told my mom about it, she said that she had seen the same little boy in front of the bookshelf that we had in our living room. He was reading a book when she woke up because she was asleep in there, but he didn't do anything reckless. He was just reading. Since we moved, nothing's really happened besides when my childhood dog passed away, and one night my other dog would just stare at one and lay down in that spot that she passed in. You don't have to share this if you don't want to, but I've always loved paranormal stuff and just wanted to share my stories to someone who gets it, because my family always calls me weird for liking that stuff. You're not weird for liking that stuff. Ever. Don't ever think that. I'm 26 now, just to make you feel better, and then we'll talk about the paranormal stuff. I'm 26 now, but when I was 16, 17, I actually tried making a YouTube channel, and I was talking about my own scary experiences and stuff. One of my cousin's wives found it and started making fun of me to the whole family, saying I needed medical attention and that I was crazy and that I was a loser. Like a fully grown adult woman was doing this. And I deleted my entire channel. And I didn't post anything for a really long time. I started talking about paranormal stuff on here around 2020, and it took my husband a lot of convincing to get me to do it, and thank God he did, right? But never listen to anyone that's mean to you about that stuff. It's fine. Paranormal stuff's interesting, okay? Even people that aren't interested in it, they're interested in it, okay? I don't care. But that's a wholesome story about your dog. It makes me very sad. But North Carolina is just very active. And a lot of people don't really talk about how active that state is. And I feel like when I hear stories from North Carolina, it's like the coastal side. The Appalachia side is a lot of energy. There is a lot of energy here. All right, next story. I've had a few experiences in my home. Nothing scary, but my family simply hasn't. I'm an empath, so I believe that these experiences may just stem from that. However, I'm not sure if these things that have happened inside of my home are just me psyching myself out or if they're simply just haunting related. It is not uncommon for only one person in the home or in the group or whatever to experience something. It's not uncommon at all. It has something to do with, like you said, you're an empath, so your gifts, just the spirits want to go to one person. It could have more malicious intent on isolation and making you feel like you're doubting yourself, so your guard's down a little bit, but it does happen a lot. For example, a couple years back, I watched my door open in the middle of the night and move itself back to close. This was the only occurrence that truly frightened me because it was the first experience that I had. A few years later, I'm once again home alone and receive a text from my sister saying that she'll be home soon. I respond and move on. An hour or so later, at the time she said she would be home, I hear footsteps downstairs in the entryway of my home. I hear these footsteps come up the stairs and walk straight towards her bedroom. Come to find out, she had not come home until much later because she had fallen asleep at her friend's house, which I found out the next morning when I talked to her. I had not previously mentioned hearing her come home, so I knew she couldn't have been messing with me. Other than those two experiences, I don't have any others that truly stuck with me other than my dog sitting and staring into random corners of my room and even avoiding the rooms. If this is connected to an energy, I have no belief that it's negative at all. I'm just not necessarily sure how it came to be in my house. My house was built in the 1970s, and my family moved in the late 90s. There have been no records of anyone passing away in the house, but we live close to two cemeteries that are in my town. I have reason to believe it may be my great-grandmother who rests in one of those two cemeteries, or just a spirit who resides here. Another idea I have is that I myself may have manifested this energy. That one I'm not so sure of. Please let me know what you think. Thank you. So, it really could be anything. Like you said, you live near cemeteries, so it could just be the spirits moving about. Even though there was no passings in that house before you guys moved in, residual energy is still very much a thing. It could even be your residual energy from years ago, you know? Especially with the footsteps and stuff and the door. I mean, it very well could be residual energy. But if I had to bet, I would think that it was just a spirit. Just whether it's your great-grandmother or another one. It feels very spirit. But anyways, that is all for today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me, and I will see you tomorrow to read even more of your guys' stories.